In his ongoing pursuit of spreading the message of true Islam, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, the Khalifa of Islam and head of the worldwide Ahmadiyya Muslim community, has been visiting various governments around the world. During these visits, His Holiness has inspired and intrigued national leaders across continents when laying out the teachings of Islam and how they present solutions to some of the most complex world issues today. Among the many parliaments that His Holiness has spoken to, the Netherlands House of Representatives becomes the newest addition. On the 6th of October 2015, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad was invited to the Dutch Parliament by the Netherlands Foreign Affairs Committee for a meeting with the representatives of the largest national parties to advise on the fight against extremism and religious bigotry. The Dutch Parliament sits in a large complex of buildings known as the Binnenhof, which is the meeting place for both houses of government and the office of the Prime Minister. The meeting was chaired by Harry van Bommel MP, the acting chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee for the Dutch Parliament and member of the Socialist Party. And among those representing various other parties was Michel Scherfers MP from the Labour Party, Pieter Omtzigt MP from the Christian Democratic Appeal Party, Johannes Brugge MP from the People's Party of Freedom and Democracy, and Sjoerd Wiemer Sjoerdsma MP from the Democrats' 66 political party.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Standing Committee of Foreign Affairs of Dutch Parliament, I would like to welcome His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. I'd also like to welcome our fellow parliamentarians from Sweden, Spain, Ireland, Croatia and Montenegro. Finally, I'd like to welcome the ambassadors of Spain and Denmark. This meeting is streamed live to an audience in the Netherlands, but also to viewers abroad. I welcome all of you. Your Holiness, it is an honor for the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs to receive you today in the Dutch Parliament. We are aware of the position of Ahmadis worldwide and realize that the community in the Netherlands is relatively small. We are happy that you are willing to share with us your views on promoting peace and interreligious harmony. Before you do so, please allow me to shortly introduce the members of Parliament that are present. On my left is Mr. Ten Broeke from the Liberal Party VVD. Next to Mr. Ten Broeke is Mr. Servaas from the Labour Party. Next to Mr. Servaas is Mr. Omtzigt from the Christian Democratic Party. And my name is Harry van Bommel, I'm from the Socialist Party. Now I would like to give you the floor to address us.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, Ever Merciful. All the distinguished guests, peace and blessing of Allah be upon you. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely express my gratitude to the organizers of today's event for inviting me to address this gathering. In today's world, we see that certain issues are constantly being highlighted and labeled as the most significant problems of our time. For example, some people are emphasizing the threat of global warming and climate change. Then there are some who are extremely concerned about the escalation of various conflicts and the increasingly volatile state of the world. If we analyze the situation objectively, we realize that world peace and security is indeed the most critical issue of our time. Unquestionably, with each day that passes, the world is becoming increasingly unstable and dangerous. And there are a number of potential causes of this. For example, the financial crisis and economic instability that has affected many parts of the world may be one major factor. Another possible root cause is the lack of justice displayed by certain world leaders towards their own people and towards others. A further reason may be the fact that some religious leaders are prioritizing their own personal interests above the greater collective good and are not discharging their responsibilities with sincerity. In terms of international relations, a major source of conflict may well be the discrepancy between the rich and poor nations of the world. If it is observed that powerful nations often seek to benefit from the natural resources of poor nations without giving them the appropriate share of their own assets. Thus, there is a long list of possible reasons as to why the peace of the world is being disturbed, of which I have mentioned just a few. Whatever the causes, I certainly believe the lack of peace in the world to be the most precarious issue of this generation. Upon hearing this, many of you may respond by saying that it is in Muslim countries where we see the most instability and the world's lack of peace is rooted in the disorder we see in Muslim world. Indeed, because I am the leader of one of the Muslim community, a worldwide I'm the Muslim community, perhaps you will consider that I too bear some responsibility for this. You may also believe that the birth of extremist groups and the rise of terrorism is actually inspired by Islamic teachings. However, it is entirely unjust to associate Islam with such disorder and hatred. At this time, there is no need to speak in detail about the history of religions, but suffice to say that if we look at the history of all religions objectively, we see that over time the followers of every religion moved away from the original teachings, and this led to internal division and conflicts. People were killed and great cruelties were inflicted. Keeping this in view, I wholeheartedly accept that over time Muslims have also moved away from Islam's true teachings. This led to frustrations and rivalries developing, which in turn have led to sectarianism, violence, and injustice. However, from the perspective of a true Muslim, my faith does not decrease upon observing the desperate state of Islam today. This is because over 1,400 years ago, the founder of Islam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prophesied that gradually Islam's teachings would become corrupted and Muslims would enter into an age of moral decline. However, he also foretold that at such a time of spiritual darkness, a reformer would be sent by God Almighty as the Prophet Messiah and Imam Mahdi to guide mankind back towards the true and peaceful teachings of Islam. As foretold by the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, the Prophet Messiah, the founder of the Ahmadiyya community, enlightened us with the original and entirely peaceful teachings of Islam. Thus, we Ahmadi Muslims are not amongst those people who are creating or partaking in today's disorder and unrest. Rather, we are the people who desire peace in the world. We are the people who seek to heal the world. We are the people who seek to unite mankind. We are the people who seek to transform all hatred and enmities into love and affection. And most certainly, we are the people who make every possible effort towards establishing world peace. As a religious leader, I wish to say that instead of blaming and provoking one another, we should focus upon building true and long-lasting world peace. In this regard, the founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has informed us of a vital principle. He said that to establish peace, it was essential that mankind sought to adopt and follow the attributes of God Almighty to the best of their abilities. He said that this was the way to ensure the continued well-being of mankind. Indeed, he further explained that the welfare and prosperity of humanity, both physically and spiritually, was directly linked to observing the attributes of God Almighty, because it was through His attributes that all forms of peace emanated. This is reflected in the very first verse of the Holy Quran, where it states that Allah is He who is Lord of all the worlds. This means that He is the provider and sustainer and master of every single person and of every form of creation. He is not only the Lord of the Muslims, but He is the Lord of the Christians, the Jews, the Hindus, and indeed of all people, no matter their religion or beliefs. God's love and benevolence towards His creation is incomparable and unique. He is also gracious and merciful. He is source of peace. Thus, when Islam stipulates that a Muslim should seek to inculcate the attributes of God Almighty, it becomes impossible for a true Muslim to harm others. Rather, the faith of a true Muslim compels him to love all of mankind and to treat every person with respect, grace, and sympathy. It is often queried that if Islam is a religion of peace, then why has the Quran given permission for war? However, that permission must be understood in its correct context and in light of what I have just explained. Maintaining long-lasting peace is of paramount importance and value, and on certain occasions, punishments or warnings are also required in order to ensure long-term peace. Accordingly, when permission for war was given by Allah the Almighty, it was given as a means of restoring peace and only as a defensive measure. Thus, it is an injustice of the very highest order that certain groups or individuals seek to associate the Holy Quran and the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, with violence or cruelty. If we study the Holy Quran and the life of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, in an impartial way, then we see that Islam is completely against all forms of extremism and bloodshed. Due to limitations of time, I cannot speak in detail, but nonetheless, I will mention certain basic Islamic teachings which prove beyond doubt that Islam is the religion of peace. As I just said, a basic and common allegation leveled at Islam's door is that it is a religion that promotes extremism and warfare. However, nothing could be further from the truth. Thus, in chapter 2, verse 191, Allah has commanded that war can only ever be justified as a means of defense. This point is reiterated in chapter 22, verse 40, which categorically states that permission for war is given only to those who have been attacked and upon whom war is forced. Further, where Allah the Almighty has given Muslim governments permission for war, it has been given only as a means to secure religious freedom and freedom of belief. Thus, in chapter 2, verse 194, Allah has commanded Muslims that they are not permitted to engage in any battle or war where religious freedom already exists. Therefore, no Muslim country, group, or individual has the right to engage in any form of violence, warfare, or lawlessness, either against the state or its people. Quite simply, in Europe and in the West, the governments are secular, and a Muslim can never have the right to violate the laws of the land. No to violently oppose the government or instigate any form of rebellion or insurgency. In fact, according to the true teachings of Islam, even if a person considers that he or she does not have the religious freedom while living in a non-Muslim country, they must not engage in dissent or lawlessness. Rather, they should leave that country and migrate to a place with more favorable conditions. In chapter 16, verse 127 of the Holy Quran, Muslim governments have been commanded that if they are ever attacked, they must respond proportionately and only to the extent of self-defense. Thus, the Quran is very clear that punishment should be limited and proportionate to the crime committed. In chapter 8, verse 62 of the Quran, Allah has said that if your opponents have ill intent and are planning to harm you, but thereafter decide to desist and move towards reconciliation, you must immediately accept their gesture and work towards a peaceful resolution, no matter what their motivation is. This Quranic teaching is a key principle for maintaining international peace and security. In today's world, there are many examples where countries have chosen to develop very aggressive policies in response to the perceived hostility of others. It seems they act upon the principle that it is better to destroy them before they destroy us. However, Islam teaches that no opportunity for peace should be wasted, and so even if there is only a glimmer of hope, then you must try and grasp it. In chapter 5, verse 9, Allah the Almighty has proclaimed that the enmity of a nation or people should never incite you to act otherwise than with justice and fairness. Islam teaches that in all circumstances, no matter how difficult, you must remain firmly attached to the principle of justice and integrity. Thus, even in a state of war, justice and fairness are of paramount importance. And when a war concludes, the victor must continue to be just and never resort to undue cruelty. However, in today's world, we do not find such high moral standards and levels of integrity. Rather, after a war is finished, countries impose sanctions and restrictions that limit the progress of the defeated parties and prevent their nations from attaining true freedom or independence. Such policies are harming international relations and can only ever increase frustrations and have a negative impact. The truth is that sustainable peace can never be established until there is justice and at every level of society. Another important teaching of Islam, which we find in chapter 8, verse 68 of the Holy Quran, states that Muslims are not permitted to take prisoners outside of a state of war. Hence, extremist and terrorist groups who are taking prisoners for no reason are acting completely against the teachings of Islam. Indeed, according to reports, they are not just taking prisoners, but are also inflicting the most barbaric cruelties upon their victims. What these terrorist groups are doing can only be condemned in the strongest possible terms. On the other hand, the Quran teaches that even where prisoners are justifiably taken, it is better to exhibit favor upon them and to release them wherever possible. A golden principle for the establishment of peace is given in chapter 49, verse 10 of the Holy Quran, where it says that if there is dispute between nations or groups, third parties should seek to mediate and to bring about a peaceful resolution to the conflict. In the event of an agreement, if either party unjustly seeks to subjugate the other and contravenes the negotiated settlement, then the other nations should unite and use force, if necessary, to stop the aggressor. However, once the aggressive party withdraws, they should not be humiliated or unduly restricted. Rather, they should be permitted to move forward as a free nation and a free society. This principle is of great significance in today's world, and in particular for the major powers and international organizations such as the United Nations to act upon. In terms of establishing world peace, an extremely momentous principle ensuring universal religious freedom is enshrined in chapter 22, verse 41 of the Holy Quran. The Quran states that if permission for war was granted, then in addition to mosques, churches, synagogues, temples, and the places of worship of all religions would be in grave danger. Thus, where Allah the Almighty permitted the use of force, it was not just to save Islam, but to save religion itself. In truth, Islam guarantees the freedom, liberty, and protection of the people of all religions. Islam protects the right of every individual to follow his or her own chosen path or belief. I have narrated before you just a few points from the Holy Quran, which are means for fostering unity at all levels of society and in all parts of the world. These are the golden keys to peace that the Holy Quran has handed to the people of the world. These are the teachings which were followed perfectly by the Holy Prophet of Islam and his true companions. And so, in conclusion, I would like to reiterate once again that the world stands in desperate need of peace and security. This is the urgent issue of our time. All nations and all peoples must come together for the greater good and unite in their efforts to stop all forms of cruelty, persecution, and injustice perpetrated in the name of religion or in any other way. This includes the mockery of any religion which can incite frustrations and resentment, and of course also includes the hateful activities of extremist groups who are falsely justifying their evil acts in the name of religion. Furthermore, we must be sincere with all nations and seek to help them so that each and every country can prosper and realize its potential. The jealousies and rivalries that we are seeing are a result of a mad hunger for wealth. In this regard, the Holy Quran has given a golden principle stating that one should not covet the wealth of others with greed. By following this teaching, we can promote world peace. At every level of society, the requirement of justice must be fulfilled so that each person, regardless of creed, caste, or color, is able to stand upon his or her own 2 feet with dignity and honor. Today, we are seeing many first world countries increasing their investment in the poor and developing nations. It is imperative that they act with justice and seek to help those nations and not merely utilize their natural resources and cheap labor forces for their own national gains and profit making. They should seek to reinvest the majority of what they earn in those countries and use the wealth to help the local people develop and to flourish. If the developed countries act in this way, it will not just be of benefit to the poorer nations, but will prove mutually beneficial. It will increase trust and confidence and remove frustration that are building up. It will eradicate the impression that the wealthy nations care only by themselves and desire to unjustly derive benefit from the resources of the weak and poor. Furthermore, it will be a means of improving the local economies and so in turn will elevate the world's economy and financial health. Most certainly, it would be a means of establishing a sense of global community, compassion, and humanity. And above all, it will be the foundation for true peace in the world. If we do not pay heed to this, then the state of today's world peace will lead to the outbreak of a disastrous world war, whose repercussion will be felt for generations to come, and consequently our generations won't forgive us for this. With these words, I would now like to take your leave. May Allah enable for true peace to emerge in the world. Thank you very much.
Your Holiness, thank you very much for addressing us. Now I would like to give my colleagues the floor to make some remarks or to ask questions, beginning with Mr. Tembruka from the VVD Liberal Party. Mr. Tembruka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Your Holiness, for being here. It's rare that we have a religious leader amidst ourselves, and it's mostly in this room. You talked a lot about the readings of the Quran, and since you are a proponent of Islam and peace, and we see so much war, prosecution, violence, almost rampant throughout the Islamic world, I'd like to put a couple of notions to you that I would very much like you to answer to. The first is that I'd like to have your opinion on whether, according to you, it is possible that the Prophet and Islam is being criticized. And if that happens, you gave a lengthy explanation about what is in the Quran, but as you understand, in a liberal democracy, the Quran has no jurisdiction. It is our penal law. It is the rule of law that has to deal with that. Do you accept the notion that any attack on Islam and the Prophet should be dealt with by the rule of law and not by the Quran or the Bible for that matter? And the last notion I would like to put to you is that do you accept that the freedom of speech actually encompasses the freedom of religion? Thank you so much.
You see,
Your Holiness.
as I explained in my address, that people have forgotten the true teaching of Islam. This is why they have deviated from the true teachings, and what they are practicing is not the true teaching of Islam. This was clear from my address, I think. And your second question was, in the recent past, there had been some, the bad words spoken, or the status of the Prophet of Islam was undermined, and there was a reaction from the Muslim community. But our reaction was that to retaliate in the same manner, or to kill somebody, or to take the law of the land in hand is just unjustified. We never retaliated in this way. We did not react in this way. Rather, our reaction was, as a Muslim community, I spoke in my sermons, and that is widely listened to almost all over the world through our television channel. And I said that this is not the reaction. The true reaction is that we should try to adopt the peaceful teachings of Islam, and every Ahmadi, every Muslim should express his Islamic teachings, and it should be, it should be portrayed from your being, that this is the true Islamic teaching. And then we should pray to God as a religious community and pray to God that may Allah give sense to the people of the world who are just humiliating the people of God, the servants of God, no matter whether it's the Holy Prophet of Islam or Jesus or anyone else. So all the religious leaders should be respected in an appropriate way. You see, if you are just smoking, as I said in my address, and trying to ridicule the prophets or any of the leaders, then there's a natural reaction from some people that they will retaliate in the same manner. Sometimes they cannot control their passions. So, you see, it's a two-way flow, give and take. Everybody should respect every person. These are the human values. So we should consider human values also. And as far as the law of the land is concerned, I have already explained that whether if the law allows you to speak whatever you like, okay, well, that law is made by the people. And this is why there have been so many amendments time to time in almost every part of the world. Whenever you enact any law, then after some time you make amendments in it. So it means you yourself are not satisfied with the law you have enacted. After, when the conditions change, you think that now we should change the law. Or this law does not give the satisfied solution to the problem of today. So you cannot say that the law is perfect, and if the law of the land is humiliating the leadership or any person whom you love is right. Okay, you have the right to say whatever you like, but in my opinion, you should not have the right to speak ill of somebody whom I love in front of me. Anyway, here in the Western world, if you have the right to openly speak against any person, no matter whether he's a prophet or leader or whatever he is, but the human values, actually, I feel, should stop you from doing this thing. Even if law says that there's a freedom of speech, okay? There's a freedom of speech, but you should put some restriction on this freedom. Otherwise, there will be disturbance and frustration in the world. And that is what you have been seeing. See, if you have experienced anything good with this reaction, then okay, I will admit that it should continue like this. If we see that there's a mass reaction from the Muslim world on this issue, when you try to humiliate the Prophet, then I think we should consider that why should we take such actions, or why should we emphasize on those things which are hurting the sentiments of others? So in my view, human values are the most important things.
Thank you very much. Mr. Servaas, Labour Party.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Your Holiness, for visiting us. And it's always good to see so many people here in Parliament. We gladly invite you to join the debate we will have on Thursday on other foreign policy issues as well, because we rarely have such a large audience for our debates. But anyway, let me, I'm a little bit in doubt what to focus on, but I think I will follow up on the issue that was raised by my colleague. As we are, as a parliament, an investigatory body, you know, we like to get into the depth of this issue and make it more concrete. I do agree with you that there are certain issues that one can say about another person's religion that can hurt that other person. And out of respect and out of a decent society, I would always advise people to have and to show respect to the other person's religion, or maybe even the absence of faith. But I also believe in, maybe not that the law is perfect, but I do believe in the principles set out by the French philosopher Voltaire. You probably know his famous quote that even if you do not agree with what someone says, we, or as Voltaire said, I will defend to death your right to say it. And even though out of good taste or out of respect I can have an opinion about certain expressions, I believe that everyone has the right to say it. And I noticed by looking at some of the remarks that you made in the past that you were critical of remarks made by a colleague of ours, Mr. Wilders, what he said about Islam, but also of the cartoons that were published in a Danish newspaper some years ago, and more recently in the French Charlie Hebdo magazine. Now my question is, even if you think with me that not all of those expressions are a sign of good taste, do you underwrite that all these people have the right to say what they want to say, or for the cartoonists, if they have the right to express their views in the way that they do it by making the drawings? Do you agree with Voltaire?
As far as the right of the freedom of expressing himself, any person, this, of course, you have in your law, in the law of the country, law of the land, and this, in present day, almost in every democratic country, it is permitted that whatever you want to say, you can say. This is the freedom of speech. But what I mean is that despite the fact that you have a freedom of speech, but there should be some limitations on this freedom. When you see that it's going to disturb and hurt somebody, then there you should put some limit on that at that point. Otherwise, whatever they are doing, we did not retaliate in that way. We say, you see, in my view, to develop peace, to create peace in the world, you will have to honor the human values. And human values are that give weightage to the sentiments of others. Not only that whatever you want to say something or whatever is in your mind, you are free to say, all right, despite the fact you are free to say, but if you consider the sentiments of others, then you would think twice before saying anything which can cause problem and destroy the peace of the society.
Well, just to follow up, because in fact you are then arguing for a limitation of the freedom of speech, and where you draw the line is apparently if people speak about others people's faith, and you would argue for a limitation there. But do you not see a risk that if you put in the law of the country a limitation of the freedom of speech, this will actually be misused by political leaders, by others, to stop the debate in a country? Because if you put one limitation on the freedom of speech, where to draw the line?
I do not say that legally you put restriction on freedom of speech. But what I mean is that we should realize the importance of peace and the importance of sentiments of others. If we do realize this thing, then every sane person would think twice before saying anything wrong to other person. If, in your view, the peace of the society is the foremost thing, then I think, despite the fact that you have a freedom to say anything you want, but a sane person will think twice. I mean, as far as I am concerned, I will never say something ill about somebody, because I know, even in your day-to-day matters, in your home, if you heard the sentiments of your wife or your brother or somebody, you see, there's a disturbance in the house. And you would like that you had not said these words. It would have been better. So this all depends on the considerations. But it does not mean that there should be, you are free, you see. If everybody is free to say something, you cannot speak about the anti-Semitism. You cannot speak about the Jews, right? What happened during the Second World War. Every person has a right, but it is widely, unliked. Even there are some countries, whenever you are speaking about Jews and what happened and anti-Semitism, then the law will get hold of you. It means there are some restrictions somewhere already imposed by the law.
Mr. Omtzigt from the Christian Democratic Party.
Thank you, and thank you for your clear speech and your promotion of peace. I'm well aware that your community suffers, for instance, in your own country of Pakistan, where the constitution doesn't even recognize you as Muslims due to the Second Amendment to the constitution, such that you're in, for us, a strange position of being a minority within a Muslim state. From that perspective, if we're now looking at the Middle East, where the Syria and Iraq war is spilling over to a number of countries around it, and quite a few of the fighting factions consider themselves Muslims, and in the name of their religion fight and kill other Muslims or other religious minorities. What would your view be of those killings, and what could we do to stop them?
You see, what is happening there in the Muslim world today, in Syria and Iraq? The conflict is between the government and the rebels. They call rebels, and you call them, or some people call themselves, those who want freedom. And they want to remove the leadership or the government. So, but both parties are being supplied with the arms, ammunition, arsenal, and the funding as well. If we want to stop that, you see, in these countries, they don't have any armament factory. They don't have enough funding to continue, although they have oil. But if you put restrictions on them, you put sanctions on them, their resources will never be sold out in the world market, their oil. So this is why some time ago I categorically said that if you put sanctions on rebels and the governments, that until and unless they come to a peaceful solution of this problem, the big powers will never help them. And if you can put sanctions on Russia and destroy their economy, or to some extent, disturb their economy, why can't IS government or Daesh be stopped from doing so? Where the funding is coming from, and where they are getting their arsenal from. See, it is you politicians who should think about that, how to stop it.
Yeah. How do we do that?
How do we do that? Well, we've been at a loss for 4 years how to stop that. And,
Yes.
And I understand there is a big political dimension to the conflict, political dimension between the rebels, which got some backing from Western countries, and the Syrian government. Yet Daesh, you already mentioned them, may have geopolitical aims, but also fights in the name of Islam and has called a caliphate by itself, like you are within your group. How do you look at not the fact that they're fighting, just like the others, for influence, but at their treatment of minorities? So not the treatment in the fighting, which you understand there is a war, but the way of beheadings and the way of forcefully letting other minorities pay extra taxes and not treating them as equals.
Right. You see, as far as what they are doing is, with regards to, as you said, that beheading, this is the war, this is not the Islamic war, because they are beheading not only the people of other religions or the old tribes, they are beheading even Muslims, those who are not of their own sect, right? So this is all un-Islamic. What I mean is that if their funding is stopped, if a proper action, a firm action is taken against them, they will not behave in this way. Now the problem is not that only beheading, it is now escalating. It has gone beyond that. Now Russia has entered into Syria. They have made their air base there. And they are doing airstrikes, right? And there's a possibility that they will send ground forces. And just today or yesterday, there was airstrike near Turkish border. And NATO showed very big concern on this issue. So it means now this war is now crossing the borders not only of Islamic states, but going beyond that. So the blocks are forming now. And if there's direct, clash between Russia and America or any other NATO countries, then the world is going to be in great havoc. This is what my concern is. So as far as beheading is concerned, it's not just an Islamic thing. I know they have been doing it. Neither Quran nor the traditions of the Prophet justify it. So, but even then I can say that if they are properly, any action is properly taken against them, you can just stop the situation. This is again the duty of the big powers, the big countries. Either you help the neighboring Muslim countries, try to give them some help so that they can take action, or at least help them in any other way, or stop funding. So nothing can be done without funds, and nothing can be done without arms and ammunition. And arsenals. And all these things are, they cannot themselves do it. They are purchasing arms from the West, underhand dealing. I don't know how do they do it, but it seems as if it is some underhand dealing. Or some people say it's offshore dealing. And selling out their oil, their resources. So if you put proper sanction on them, you can control them. So these beheading and such type of things, that they are now just very petty matters. The big problem is coming out is the blogs are forming, and there you should just ponder over it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sjoerdsma from the Liberal Democrats, D66.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much for this introduction, your clear dedication to the values of peace, of human rights. And I'm tempted to follow up on questions some of my colleagues posed when it comes to the freedom of expression. But I wanted to ask your view on another topic, on those youngsters in our country, young men, young women, who are tempted by a radical extremist version of Islam to join the fight in countries like Syria, countries like Iraq. What would you say to those youngsters tempted by this perverted version of your faith? What would be your advice? What would be your call to them?
You see, young people who are being radicalized here in the West and going to Syria or Iraq to fight for IS government or whatever it is. You see, these are the frustrated people. If you go back to 2008 economic crisis, you will see there is frustration among the youth. Only in the United Kingdom, there were almost 2.6 million people who were unemployed because of the crisis. And millions of people were unemployed in the world and other parts of the world, countries of the world, developed world. And they are frustrated people. When they were asked, and among quite a big number of them are immigrants from Asia and other countries. And they are, unfortunately, they are Muslims. So when they see that they are being given, or they are being, asked to come to join us, and we shall pay you this much amount. So because of that frustration, in short, I am telling you, they are being radicalized. This one reason is not only the reason, the religious reason, but is the economic reason as well. If they are given the opportunity to get jobs here, I think a quite good percentage of these radicalized people can be reduced. Even they say there was some improvement in the job opportunities in the United Kingdom, for instance, but it also said that the least beneficiaries of that was the youth. So they are again frustrated. So they are being radicalized. They were being radicalized and going there to fight for IS and were being heavily paid. For instance, it is said that some people, when if somebody goes there, they pay them from $4,000 to $6,000 a month. Where they are getting this money from? This is why my question is, again, the same question. So, and now the situation has changed. Now they are saying they are still radicalizing through internet and other means, but they say now those people, especially the Muslim youth or families living in the West, should not come to Syria or Iraq anymore. They should stay there. They will guide them how to work for their interests in these Western countries. And it is also said that now our attack will be cyber attack. So this is it's a chain, a vicious circle now. You cannot just stop it within no time. The only solution is to stop and, from the roots, nip the bud. Otherwise, they will, whether they go there or not, they are a danger for the Western world as well. And even now, those Syrians coming here, the IS representative said that in every 50 people who are coming, refugees, one of them is IS strong member. So this is one of the reason, economic reason. And then they are, secondly, is religious reason as well, because they do not know the true teaching of Islam, those who are Muslims. And even there are some local native people who have accepted Islam and have been radicalized. And even they are more, cruel than the Asian Muslims. Sometimes it is said by the news, the journalists who have gone there. So the only thing is that stop their funding and stop their supplies in every respect.
Thank you very much. Please allow me to ask you a last question, which is related to the position of Ahmadis worldwide. As we all know, Ahmadis are worldwide persecuted in many countries, but especially in Islamic countries, such as Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. What can Western governments and Western parliaments, what can we do to help stop, to help end the persecution of Ahmadis worldwide?
You see, it is said that nowadays, almost in every country, there is democracy, whereas it is not. If there is democracy, why can you remove the president or prime minister who has been on their seat for a long time? So there's some limited type of democracy or modified type of democracy in those countries. So, and because these countries are also getting help from the Western world. So if you want to curb the unpleasant situation everywhere in the world, it's not only that the Ahmadis are being persecuted. In some places, Christians and other religions are also being, persecuted. So the only thing is that you ask the governments to enact their laws in the manner that gives the right of freedom of speech and religion to every person, no matter, even in those Muslim countries, they say that they read Quran, but Quran categorically says that there is no compulsion in religion. If there is no compulsion in religion, then why should they be persecuted? So it is only the pressure, if you can put the pressure on them, that not only, it's not a matter of Ahmadis, but a matter of every person who is being denied of his right of freedom in any way should be helped.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Standing Committee of Foreign Affairs I would like to thank you, Your Holiness, for addressing us, for sharing your views with us. I know that you are going to be here for a longer period than just today. I'd like to wish you success on your mission, and we hope to one day meet you again in Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think
Without
it's
prayer, that is-
extremely important, your message, your visit, that the Dutch people understand that Muslim is not only something they have to be anxious about. That also on the Muslim side are people who are in favor of human rights and democracy and free speech. So I think you're
What do you
very
think
welcome.
in the Netherlands there is no Islamophobia, or not to that extent, which is actually we can see in other parts of the Western world? Here, what about
It is latent in this society. Whenever there is tension, like in France, following the Charlie Hebdo incidents, murders, other incidents happening in the world, then we feel the tension in this country as well. So we don't know where things might lead to in the future, but there is tension and there is Islamophobia also in this country.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yes, that is.
And if they don't hear something positive from time to time, it may get worse.
So you give us time to speak about on this issue time to time, so that people will get to know that what is the true teaching of Islam.
That is why we invited you to Parliament in the first place. Absolutely, yes.
And I think our Parliament did a very good job on this. Yes.
I agree. Thank you very much.
I started out as a diplomat, so I'm very interested in international affairs, and I'm very worried about what's going on in the Muslim world. And I think the Ahmadiyya, they have a new vision on the road to peace, which includes human rights, free speech, democracy. And I think it's very important that we in the West, we know about that, because otherwise we think all the Muslims are the same. And it's important, I think, that we pay attention to the positive elements in that religion.
Well, I was a member of the PVV, my former boss Geert Wilders, and in that period I believe that Islam was, what you read in the newspapers, in the media, Islam was intolerant and disrespectful to women and promoting terrorism and all these ridiculous ideas. And I even believed that, because that was the knowledge that I had at that moment. But during a certain amount of time I was getting doubts. I thought, how is it possible that there are so many Muslims? They can't be all mean people or dangerous people. So I wanted to know more about Islam, and I went to the mosque. I studied Islam. I was reading the Quran. I was reading about the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And during this period of getting knowledge, it became clear to me that I was wrong, that I was mistaken, that Islam actually is a very wise and very peaceful and very beautiful religion. And finally, I became a Muslim about 2.5 years ago. His Holiness' words were very inspiring and very wise. I was curious to come here, and I'm touched by his words and by his wisdom and his call for mutual understanding, and also his message that Islam is a peaceful and wise religion, and also that he was trying to explain that there are a lot of misconceptions about Islam, and that was a positive message.
I think it is important right now, while we are having the debate in this country on the freedom of speech, at the same time we are discussing the situation in the Middle East. It is important to have a Muslim leader talking about interreligious harmony, about peace, and about the freedom of religion. Those three aspects are core
at the core of the debate in the Netherlands, and it's good to have a Muslim leader talking about these subjects in this country right now.